Hello, and welcome to our latest Canary coaching session. In today's session, we learn how to build logging sessions in Canary using Excel sheets. My name is Sean Ebersole. I'm a solutions consultant with Canary, and I will lead you through the training today. I also have Don Mast. He's one of our industry-leading industrial database experts. He's standing by ready to address any of your questions that might pop up along the way. So feel free to use the Zoom features to ask any questions. So, what is a Canary logging session? Well, it's simply a list of tags that are mapped to send data to a data set in the Canary Historian from the source device. So here's an example of an OPC UA tag list inside of our Canary collector, which will be the end result of our coaching session today. But before I build a list like this from Excel, it will be important to know, more about, why we should build a logging session from an Excel sheet. I would say the biggest reason is that browsing the OPC server to build a tag list can take a lot of time, especially depending on the structure of the tag browse tree on the OPC server. You may end up browsing through many branches of tags in the OPC server to find the tags you need to build your list from. And also, if you want to change tag names in bulk, then it's a very tedious task to do that from the tag list in Canary. And I would say probably a third reason you'd want to build a logging session from Excel is, again, when you want to add metadata to the tags on the list or other properties, it's much faster using Excel tools to do that. And we'll dive into these topics in a minute, but first I wanted to talk about how the mapping between the Canary tag list and the tag list in the OPC server work. So the key to mapping the tag list in Canary to the same tag list in the OPC server is the OPC NodeID. And this mapping is automatically done when you use the browse function inside of the Canary OPC collector to build your tag list. But as I just talked in the previous slide, that is normally not the easiest way. So it's important to realize that the node ID Canary uses for each tag on the list is an identifier for a node in the OPC server's address space. That then links to the address of the tag in the OPC server. So therefore, the OPC node ID in Canary will not match the tag address inside of the OPC server. And I will show you the significance of this when we copy the tag list that is exported from the OPC server into the Canary tag list. But here is a quick example of an exported tag list with addresses from a Kepware OPC UA server, and then comparing that to the tags in Canary when they are mapped to the OPC server's address space. So you can see there is definitely a difference, and this is one of the things we're going to take into consideration here. So I'm going to go ahead and into my Canary logger. So what you're looking at right now on my screen is a finished product. Now I just made a simple logging session with a group of 10 tags. And each of those tags has already been mapped back to that OPC server namespace with the proper OPC node ID for each tag. So I'm going to kind of show you, first of all, how I came to this conclusion. So if I look inside of my Excel sheet where I actually exported from Kepware, you can see I already reformatted that then to be copied and pasted into the OPC collector here. Now that didn't look that way at first. Here's how it actually looked when I exported that tag list of those 10 tags. This is how it kind of spit out the results. And if I was to copy this right now and simply copy all 10 rows of data, when I'm in the collector and I would hit the paste new button, it wouldn't sync up. I have to first format it to match the columns that are already detailed here inside my collector. So what I'm going to do now is I want to take you through a process. I'm actually going to create a brand new session by hitting the new session button. And again, I'm inside our OPC collector. So from the home screen, if you're not familiar with Canary, I just launched the OPC collector. So I'm going to start with a new session. So I'm going to go ahead and give this session a name. We'll just say CC for Canary Coaching. I need to make sure that I take the data that we're logging and store it on the proper server, which here is my server for the local historian I'm running. And I need to pick a data set. So if you're familiar with creating a logging session, I'm just going to call this CC data set. Now here's where I need to put in the host name or the URL, which I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste that in rather than type it in. So that's where my OPC server is residing. So from here, what I'm going to need to do though is I'm going to go ahead and browse that first. So if I hit the browse button, it's going to allow me to come in and browse that OPC server. And here is my choices. So these are all the nodes on that. This is, by the way, is a Kepware OPC server. I want to look for my simulated tags. They're under the function node. So I'm just going to pick the very first tag to begin with and say, okay. The reason I did that was I wanted to see actually what my node ID looks like. Because if I go now into Kepware, so here's my Kepware server. So here's my simulation example node. And this is the device that I'm going to get those 10 tags from. So as you saw on my Excel sheet earlier, here's the same 10 tags. And I'm going to go ahead and simply right click and I'm going to export that tag list to CSV. So it's going to ask me where do I want to save that at. I'll just save it to my desktop here. We'll call that function CC. So I've exported that tag list. Now, I'm just keeping this very basic, but obviously I'm sure you have tag lists where you have thousands of different tags that you want to include into a logging session. So I'm going to go ahead into where I save that. We're going to open up that. So here is the unformatted download of that CSV file for those 10 tags from Kepware. So in order for me to go ahead and copy in these 10 tags, I'm going to need to do some formatting. So the idea here is that the first step I need to take is determining which of these columns I want to include into the actual logging session inside of my OPC collector. So first of all, you can see I have my existing single tag that I've created here, but what I want to do is actually create more tag properties. So there are some default properties in my list here. I'm going to actually just go ahead and pick one or create one and add that here for location. So I want to have a location column inside of my logging session so I can track the location of all these tags based on where they're at, maybe in a certain asset. So if I come back to my Excel sheet, I'm going to close this one because that's the finished product. So what I want to do is make sure that my columns now match. So I want to first of all take where it says random 1, I want to insert in the proper node ID for our collector. So I'm going to come in here and copy this and paste that here. The rest of these columns I don't really need. I'm just going to remove those. So now I have the node ID for 1. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that, and we'll just paste this. Oh, before I do that, we're going to cut and paste this down here at the bottom. Delete that row. And now when I copy, we'll just go ahead and paste that down across here. So now I've replaced the address of these tags from the Kepware OPC server and put in our node IDs that match that OPC namespace. So the mapping part really is done at this point. What I need to do now is just ensure that I have my columns matching inside of Canary here. So I do have a typed column and I have a deadband, transform, and location column. So I need to make sure I create those here. I did on it, transform, and then finally location. Now, when I copy these in, I could actually include locations inside. I can actually come here to individual tags and type in the location. So say this was located in the southeast section. I could do that individually for all my tags once they're here, but it becomes very difficult individually to do that. That's where Excel tools come into play. So I know, like, hey, these are all located in the southeast section, for example. I can go ahead and paste the location here, for example. Maybe I wanted to have other columns like descriptions, GPS coordinates, whatever the case is. But to keep this simple for today, what I want to do now is simply copy this list. Now I can go in and I already have the first tag in there. So let me do this. Let me just copy the other 9 rows. And I want to come in here and paste those in. So now you can see how I have all 10 tags. Here's the proper node ID, and I have the location in here. Now, if I was to have a list of 10,000 tags, like it's quite common in my tag list here, if I had to individually come into each tag and say, oh, you know what, I need to say this is the northwest location instead of the southeast, I had to individually come in here and make all those changes. Or maybe I needed to redefine tag names. So before I copied and pasted this in, if I know these shouldn't be random 1 through 10, this one, these should be pressure 1 through 10, for example. So now I'm going to have to manually change these tag names one by one, because this is not really like a spreadsheet format. So that's why, again, when you get your tag list created in Excel, making all these changes makes it very easy compared to doing it after the fact inside of Canary. So once I'm ready to create this logging session, now that I've copied and pasted in my tags, formatted everything, I can apply. It's going to create that new data set. Now I can go to my status and I can see there's my new data set of 10 tags. And I can hit the play button to start logging data to the historian to that data set. And I can just double check my work by going into my historian. There's my CC data set, and I can drill down in. Here's my daily file for today, since today's the very first day I started logging to this data set. Here's the 10 tags. I can see there's pressure 1, and I'm getting live data coming in now from the OPC server. So that's how you can create your logging session, by having a pre-formatted list in Excel and copying and pasting that in to the OPC collector. So I'm going to go ahead and just see if we have some questions here. If you haven't posted any questions yet in the chat, feel free to do so. I don't see any questions just yet, but I would like to point out, while I'm waiting for questions, every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern time, we have our Canary overview webinar. So if you're still pretty new to Canary, and this just kind of gave you a little bit of a glimpse of just one part of our system, and you'd like to learn more in general, tomorrow will be a great webinar for you to attend. I don't think we have any other questions. Again, I appreciate everybody's time and for joining today, but any other questions that do come up, feel free to reach out to myself or anyone else on our Canary team. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day.